Okay, hello everyone and welcome to another edition of What They Did and How They Did It from Seaways Cafe here in Fridaythorpe, the destination for everyone on 2 wheels, 4 wheels and no wheels. Now today I am delighted to be joined by professional motorcycle racer Steve Parrish. So as I just said, Steve is a former motorcycle and truck racer who is now a motorsport television commentator and speaker. Steve turned professional in motorbike racing at 22 years of age in 1976. His riding career continued until 1981. During that time, he won 5 championships, but continued to ride the Isle of Man TT until 1986. He contested in 8 TTs starting from 1975. After retiring from motorcycle racing, Steve led a dual career both managing a very successful Yamaha factory team to 3 superbike titles and starting a successful truck racing career. He won the British Open Truck Racing Championship 4 times and the European Championship 5 times between 1987 and 2001. In more recent years, Steve's provided commentary and analysis for ITV's week-long coverage of the Isle of Man TT, alongside former racer James Witham. The coverage is also shown in the US. Steve has also co-authored Barry, the story of motorcycling legend Barry Sheene, a biography of his former teammate. More recently, Steve has released his own autobiography called Parrish Times, My Life as a Racer. He was supposed to be appearing at the Majestic Theatre in Darlington on Friday the 17th of April, but due to the coronavirus has been cancelled. Now, Steve, thank you very much for taking the time to join us here at Seaways. You know, we've got a strong community and there'll be a lot of interest for, obviously seeing yourself and hearing from yourself today. So I'd like to start, having had a very successful career in racing, what was it like starting out for you? Where did it all begin?
Very, very good question. I was not one of the, what I call a kid that grew up wanting to be a motorcycle racer. It never entered my head. I was a kid that grew up not going to school as much as I should. I wasn't a very good pupil. Didn't enjoy it at all. Lived out in the countryside near Cambridge. And obviously my parents did their best to kick my bum and send me to school as much as possible. But I always had a fascination with engines, I guess. And it didn't necessarily have to be 2 wheels. It could be 4 wheels. It could be 3 wheels, a cycle, anything that ran and went fast and propelled me along. And very fortunately, really close to where we lived, there was an old disused airfield. And we had an involvement in that airfield, and so I was kind of let loose there to do whatever I wanted to do. Kind of tragically, my poor old father died when I was 12 years old, so I probably had a bit of a free hand in that I could get away with an awful lot. And I had a few friends around the villages that I went to school with, and they kind of had the same kind of passion that I had. So we would be seen sometimes when I should have been at school, and then certainly at weekends and in the evenings, belting around a disused airfield on and in anything, as long as it only cost about 10 quid. That was the kind of main idea, because I didn't have any money, and anything I did have would be from washing people's cars or a bit of pocket money saved up and maybe borrowing a few quid off my mum. And I just loved tearing around this disused airfield. And then motorbikes came into my life properly when I was 16. I mean, I'd still been riding them from the age of probably 13, 14, 15. But at 16, back then, you could have a motorcycle license. And I did. I got a motorbike on the road, tearing around like a lunatic, I have to say, in the days when you didn't even have to wear a crash helmet. So how I survived that era of my life is another matter. And then met up with a sort of another bunch of like-minded people, and we decided at our local pub that we would have a team, and it wasn't going to be a football team or a darts team or a rugby team. It was going to be a motorcycle team. And as I was arguably the fastest of the bunch on the road, I was a designated rider, and someone else would do the paint work and someone would do the machining, because we were all kind of involved in that mechanical world. There was a machinist and a welder and a paint sprayer and a car body repair. So that was our team, and that's exactly how it happened. And it was, even at that point, at the age of probably 18, 19, never expected to go motorcycle racing for a career or a job. It was just fun. So that was how it happened, which is so different to how things seem to happen now. Because if you look at a modern day rider, whether it be Grand Prix, Superbike, British Superbike, generally they're riding at the age of 6 years old, and dad's there with a little motorbike, and they're kind of steered down that avenue. And I know I've got a local rider close to me here now called Luke Mossey, and he races in the British Superbike Championship. Yep. And I remember seeing Luke Mossey when he was 4 years old on a little PW50 thing, tearing around with his dad coaching him. And there's a lot, seemingly nowadays, you don't just land into motorcycle racing. You go through a kind of coaching and academies, and it's a completely different world. So I was one of the last, I guess, guys to come through just mucking around on bikes. And as you said at the beginning, started racing at the age of 22, which is so late now. God, if you haven't won a British title by the time you're 12 or 13, you're no chance nowadays. So it's massively different. So that was it. Just a love of engines and speed, danger, scaring myself, adrenaline, you name it. And that was what got me into it. So just sort of fluky, really.
Yeah. So my next question was going to be, how the sports vary from today to what they did back, obviously when you were racing, with Barry Sheehan and all that lot, obviously I've read stories and heard stories from, back in the day where Barry turned up with a hangover to a qualifying and he wasn't able to qualify. So you, being the perfect teammate, decided to put his helmet and leathers on and... Is that true? First of all, true.
It is very different, but I've got to. That story's half right, and it's really quite funny. I did qualify for Barry Sheehan at Mallory Park, and as you'll know, that I was coming up to Darling to do one of my Mad tours, and it's a question that gets asked a lot because before I started doing my theatre shows, which are now in their 6th year, Carl Fogarty and James Whittam, who we spoke about, who I co-commentate, we're also doing theatre tours, probably a couple of 3 years before I started, called the Foggy and Wick Show. And that story you're talking about, me qualifying about, it got embellished, is the word, by James Whittam, right. In that Barry Sheehan had got hangover and couldn't go out and ride his bike. Well, he didn't have a hangover. What he had was a problem with his leg. This is in 1977, this actually happened, but in 1975, Barry Sheehan had a big accident in Daytona. Crashed at 180 miles an hour, broke his leg quite badly. And what happened was at Mallory Park that particular day, he went to get off the bike and his knee had locked up. It was nothing to do with drink, I can assure you. And they had to get him off to an osteopath. And it was all devised that they would sneak Barry out of the Mallory Park paddock without anyone knowing, with his dad, Franco, driving his Rolls Royce that he'd owned at the time, under a blanket to take him to an osteopath to get him fixed up, which meant he was going to miss the qualifying session. So that was when I stepped in, and we worked it out with the team manager at the time, a guy called Rex White, that I could nip out as Barry Sheehan for 3 or 4 laps, just so his bike was qualified. So when he came back from the osteopath, as long as they'd fixed his leg, he could ride. So that's exactly what we did. And when qualifying came around at midday, I think it was, I snuck out of the awning on the back of his truck at the time with the number 7 leathers and helmet and boots and gloves and everything else. And we were similar size. In fact, we were exactly the same size. And away I went for 3 or 4 laps. Being timed, because back then there was no transponders. It was just someone there with the stopwatch, little lady up in the tower, and no electronic timing. But what was quite funny is I remember every time I got to the hairpin at Mallory, the whole group of girls waving underwear at me. They thought I was Barry Sheehan. I was Barry Sheehan. Little did they know, as a bloke with a big nose and 2 big ears underneath the disguise of Barry Sheehan. Anyway, I did qualify. I didn't know what the times were. As I say, there was no onboard timing or anything else like that. I then went tearing back into his awning, got out the back, got into my caravan, got changed into my gear with 20 minutes left of the session, went out, did, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 laps. My mechanic changed the gearing on the bike, did another 5 laps. Everything was cool. Barry came back. Again, nobody had any idea that he'd been out the paddock. And again, it was often at least an hour before the times came out. And they would be handwritten by the little ladies in the control tower that would write these times out, the grid positions, and they'd put them on behind a glass thing on the toilet block at Mallory Park. And I went over and had a look with Barry when he came back, and sure enough, he was quite astonished, and so was I, because he was on the front row and I was on the second row. I'd managed to out-qualify myself. So yeah, you can't imagine that's going to happen with Valentino Rossi and Vinales these days, or the Ducati boys swapping bikes and disguising one another. I don't think that is ever likely to happen again, and probably never will. So anyway, it was good fun. He owed me one, and I got him on the grid. He went on to win the race, and I finished second, so it wasn't all that bad.
Well, I mean, just following on from there, so he went to the osteopath the day before, the morning. The next day, he went and won the race.
All happened on the same day. It was
supposed to be. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Because again, lots of things are different. It was not uncommon to have one-day race meetings. Then you turn up in the morning or the night before, and you do your free practice session, which would be a 10-minute session. Then you get half an hour qualifying, and then 2 or 3 races in the day. Things were condensed in, and that all happened on the one single day. But yeah, that's exactly how it happened. And to this day, I'm not sure whether the girls waving their underwear at me, or he had a better bike than me. But I obviously went faster on his bike than I did on my own. So yeah, quite a funny story. And just they were the sort of things that happened. You were teammates, and we actually were mates, I guess, as opposed to hating one another and having a wall down the middle of garages that they seem to have these days.
Yeah. Well,
but it was so relaxed, I think. That was the difference. Motorcycle racing was massively dangerous then, much, much more than it is now, because the circuits didn't have runoff areas and they were lined with Armco barriers and railway sleepers. Protective clothing was crap. The helmets weren't very good. The leathers were rubbish. The boots were rubbish. The gloves were. It was like wearing golf gloves. There was no big padding or anything else like that. So we suffered, sadly, with a lot of deaths and an awful lot of terrible injuries and lots of broken bones and things like that. We're all quite heavily scarred, I guess, motorcycle racers from my era. But I think the upside was it was an awful lot more fun, from what I could see anyway.
Yeah. Well, there must have been something there for you to continue to keep doing it under those circumstances as well. Now, you rode your first TT, 21 years of age. What was that like? Going
Scary.
to TT for the first of your first TT so young. What was that like?
Scary as hell, I guess. The TT, I always had a huge amount of respect for it. I knew exactly it bites. The penalty is bigger than the crime at the TT. But I also knew that I needed to do it really for my career. By this time, I was worked out that I could make a living from it, and I'd got commercial help behind me. Not really. It was not sort of Red Bull and Monster and big companies like that. It was more a builder from Guildford and a chicken farmer from Oxfordshire, and kind of patrons of our sport that loved the sport, and they were financially helping me. And for me to climb the ladder, it was reasonably important to do the TT. And nearly all the British riders did the Isle of Man back then. Virtually everyone did. And so I took upon myself to go and learn it. But it was so different to learn it then. My only way of learning it was either on a motorbike or in a transit van or whatever I could find to drive around lap after lap. And the restriction for me, and this is genuinely the truth, was how much petrol I could afford to put in my van and drive around there, because it was all expenditure. I didn't have any money, and there was no help from the government or from the organisers as there is now.
Yeah.
For instance, sadly, the TT isn't happening this year, nor is the classic TT, but Glenn Irwin, Irish rider, good Irish rider, is going to do the TT, or was going to do the TT this year. Well, he'd been invited out there so many times. They lend him a car, they pay for it all, his flights to come and learn the circuit. So it's changed quite dramatically. But most importantly, he can look at an onboard from Ian Hutchinson, Michael Dunlop, John McGuinness, Hickey, and learn the circuit without even getting anywhere near it. So it's a lot different to how it was back then. But yeah, an awful lot of trepidation when you went out there, but a tremendous amount of satisfaction, jubilation, and adrenaline, I guess you'd say, from coming and having done it. I related the TT a bit like exercise. You kind of don't want to go out and do it, but when you've done it, you feel a lot better. And that's sort of,
as a cyclist,
we all sit in a cold, nice warm house. Sometimes think, I shouldn't be going out there and doing this. But when you come back in, you feel really good. And the Isle of Man was like that. Even back then, we'd do early morning practice, and you'd be up at bloody 4:30 in the morning and going out there, and it was cold and damp sometimes, and you were having a lot of fun doing it, scaring the shit out of yourself. But when you came back in, that breakfast felt good, and that day was much better for it. And then after the racing, you just got on the ferry to go home on cloud nine, tripping around, having achieved a great deal. And I think anyone that gets replicas at the Isle of Man TT deserves every part of it, and they'd be proud to say they did it and satisfying. But we go back to that terrible part of it, which I have a love-hate relationship with the Isle of Man, is that one or two people aren't getting on that ferry going home sometimes, and probably more so back in my day. So it had that kind of knife edge that was very, very sharp, that, as I say, the penalty was bigger than the crime. But there you go. You're not stopping people doing it. You won't stop people doing skydiving and mountain climbing and, whatever. Extreme sports are wonderful. And if you've never done them, you'll never experience the satisfaction and adrenaline that you get from it.
Absolutely. There's something about being on the edge that keeps you going, that, it's like a little fix. It's like your little high.
Yeah.
Now, the Mad Tour was cancelled. That should have taken, so I've got this here for anyone that can see. Steve Parrish's Mad Tour, funny and informative. And it was supposed to take place on the 17th of April at the Majestic Theatre in Darlington. Now that's obviously been cancelled. Any plans to reschedule that?
Yes, very much so. We had about 6 dates set to tour at the start of the year in April. They're all hopefully going to they are going to get rescheduled. We should have been down in Newbury earlier, and then we were going for Darlington, then we were going up to Arbroath and to Dunfermline, kind of all over the country. We are going to be at Louth in Lincolnshire. We're going to Morecambe, John McGuinness country. But they will be rescheduled. There will be new flyers going out. There'll be social media to let people know where it's all going to happen. So, yeah, we're really disappointed. I love doing the theatre shows. It's great fun. Doing telework is great, but you don't really know people's reactions. You might get a Twitter or Facebook telling you what's going on. But with the theatre show, you've got live reaction. And I know that people enjoy the show. It's a bit what we were talking about earlier. It's the things that went on that will never go on again in sport. And that's not just motorcycle racing. I think in every sport it's so commercialised now. Nobody dare do anything because of the sponsorship, and they get fired and they get let go from teams, or they get kicked out of teams. Any tiny little thing nowadays, you are funneled down this route, and it's so commercialized you can't have any fun anymore. So my Mad Tour is not really about where I finished in the races. It's more about all the things that went on in between the races and at the races and mucking about, really. It was like a bunch of kids having a great time, like a school trip, really, I guess you'd say. That's what it was like when I did it. So we have a lot of fun, and I've never yet no one's ever come along and come out of there without saying, great, loved it. Even the wives and girlfriends that come along go, I really wasn't looking forward to this, but I've had a wonderful evening. So, I hope to catch up with everyone when we come up that way. And I think the same with my book. I'm just about to give that a plug. My book is so different to any other book that I've written on autobiography, because just about every other book,
Michelle's holding it behind her there.
Oh yeah, there you go. Nearly every other book, and I'm not knocking it, because I enjoy reading them, but it's usually about, I went to this race and I then went to that race and this happened. And mine isn't about that. It's about all the daft things that went on, really. So it's slightly, I guess, amusing than most of the other books out there, because I think that's what we need, especially in times like this. We need to have a giggle, don't we? Absolutely. God, it's depressing enough. You need to lighten up a bit.
Yeah, hence the reason for you being able to join me today. I can offer something to our audience that are unable to join us in these times. It's more of a case of me delivering to them as opposed to them coming to us. So, and I'm sure it'll be greatly received by a lot of our customers. So, we're in lockdown. TT's been cancelled. Classic TT's been cancelled. You're obviously a lot quieter than you would have been normally. I know you've got a runway. I know you've got a 9-hole golf course. You've got a farm. How do you spend your days now? What's going on in Steve Parrish's life at the moment?
I guess I should be saying it's absolute bliss, because we've been very fortunate and been blessed with the wonderful weather we've had recently. It's just turned a bit chillier and windier down this way at the moment. But my day is, I'm a bit of an odd job handyman. I cannot sit still. I've been very fortunate over the last, what's it been, 5 weeks or something like that, maybe more. I've got some old motorbikes, old race motorbikes that were in need of a bit of tender loving care and attention. So I've been one by one bringing them out where they're stored, which is in my gymnasium, into the garage, up on the bench, taking them apart, putting them back together again. So they've definitely benefited. And these old RG 500s are from, there's a 1978, 79 and an 81 bike, which we generally take one of them round on the theatre shows with us anyway. They're all in pristine conditions, absolutely beautiful. I've been spending a fortune having parts sent down and stuff like that. I've been starting them all up and getting them all going. My 750 Yamaha FZ 750 Superstock is on the bench as we speak, which is my next project. But I bet 90% of the people that might listen to this, I've been painting, I've been mending, I've been fixing, I've been doing all sorts of things, and it's been lovely weather. I've got an old tractor that I've been refurbishing, and I don't know, just odds and ends and bits and pieces. And each day, as you say, we're like a little commune up here on the farm. There's another couple that live up here, so we've self-contained within a group. So we have a 4-ball of 9-hole golf about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'm slightly embarrassed to say the beer and gin and tonic comes out about 6:30 in the evening. So, but we've exercised a lot, and my wife and I, we go out cycling and exercising and things like that. So kind of bliss, really, you'd say. The downside is that I really am missing my work. I should have been leaving tonight to fly Plummet Airways to the Northwest 200. That practice would have started tomorrow. So that's kind of gone. And quite a few other bits and pieces of jobs and things like that. So that side of it, I'm really disappointed that I'm not doing, because I love that part of it. But I've been having a pretty good time in the sunshine doing all the nice things that lots of people would enjoy doing.
Oh, well, you know, I suppose making on while you can is key.
Yeah, sure. My hands are, I keep, obviously we wash our hands a great deal, but my hands are covered in oil and grease in the workshop in the daytime and things like that. But very satisfying, I think, you know, restoring things and painting things and doing stuff like that. You know, I'm sure you're the same. You can spend all week kind of running around like a lunatic getting nowhere, but at least at the moment I'm seeing the products of my work.
Yeah, well, my joke is to my customers that I'm only pretending to look busy. So, you know, there's always someone worse off than yourself. So if I just say I'm pretending to look busy, there's nothing they can say to that. So it's nice and easy. It's all in good humour and everyone has a laugh about it. So it's great.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for your time this morning, as I'm sure all the viewers are as well. I'm going to let you get back on with your day, because I'm sure you've got plenty of things to be tinkering with, decorating, you know.
Well, we cut the grass about 3 times a week, because that's one other thing you can do, isn't it, and things like that. But
that's a good job.
I'm really kind of hoping that things relax a little bit. And you're right, a lot of people are not as fortunate as we are. There's people desperate to get out and do everything, and we do need the country back on its feet soon, because it is going to be tough. But small businesses like you, you know, I'm not working, my wife isn't, and so many people are going to feel the financial pinch, and it's going to take a long while to get ourselves back on our feet. So I don't know about you, but I'm a bit of a belt and braces person. I think I've always got a plan A and a plan B and a C, and this doesn't work. And, you know, like you, self-employed, you have to kind of keep looking ahead as to what's going to happen this year and then next year and so on and so on. I never had this one on the horizon. I really didn't. I was absolutely bowled over by something like this could happen in this time. And I'm sure that we're going to reassess our position in life and way we go about things now. And then keep safe, everyone out there. Can I ask you what the pictures on the wall are? What's the one up behind you I can see?
This one?
Yeah, well, there's a big bike of its own I can see on the other side of you. It'd be on your left side.
Right, wait there. Okay, so I've got this one.
Yeah. That's right. Oh.
Right, so here we have a picture of Barry Sheen. It was signed to someone. I don't know who gave it to us.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll start at the bidding art. And here I've got a picture. Oh, you've got nearly as much hair now as you did back then.
Oh my God, that's Roger Burnett, Roger Marshall, Barry Sheen, Leon Haslam, Alex George, George Beale, who used to, obviously Barry Sheen, George Beale was the team manager for the Transatlantic Series. That would be about, I'm going to guess, 1980 or something like that, 79, 80, yeah.
Yeah,
Long
there's no
time
date
ago.
on the back, so I can't be really smart and tell you there, sorry.
No. Probably early 80s or something like that.
The other pictures on the wall are just pictures of our site here at Seaways.
Okay.
I can grab one of those if you want.
No, it's all right. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I can see him up there. No, it's nice to have all that. I've got. Yeah, I can turn mine around a little bit. I've got a. I don't know what you can see. I've got a bit of truck racing on. Bit of truck racing going on there. What else have we got? That's the cover of the book I wrote on Barry up there.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Got that. There's me riding Kevin Schwantz's bike at Goodwood, me riding Valentino Rossi's bike at Valencia, that would have been. Fair bit of Barry Sheen here, myself and Barry on the wall there. Yeah, all sorts of odds and ends, truck racing, motorbikes, cartoons. Myself there with the Duke of Edinburgh, something to up in Scarborough, that was. A few crash helmets over the years. Difficult to exactly sort of ponchos. Now that's what you want to be stocking up there for when the rain comes. They're the latest Steve Parrish ponchos. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like a lady in a bikini that you wear over the top of your leathers or whatever, and it helps for social distance. Everyone runs away from you.
Well,
that's my wall there, and hang on, I'll just give you a quick look out here if you like.
Definitely, yeah, please.
Out here is the Plummet Airways is out there. I don't know if you can see that. That's the gate.
Yeah.
Plummet Airways arrivals and departures. The greenkeeper on the golf course, sorting that out. But yeah, we've got plenty of space up here and a field of alpacas over the back there. So,
wow.
Fortunate to live out in the countryside.
Fantastic. Yeah. Was that outbuilding a accommodation unit, or is that one of your sheds? With
no, that's my wife's office. So she walks there. That's her commute, is her office over there, which actually should be full of things to do with my work, but it's full of sewing machines where she's making masks at the minute. So that's what.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. Yeah, it's our little commune up the top here. We're still keeping ourselves reasonably busy, but I am going to run out of things to do very, very soon. So, Boris, if you're listening, please release us a little bit.
Absolutely. I think there'll be a lot of people with the same thoughts and opinions on that one. Anyway, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to coming having a full English up with you one day, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Come check us out. You know, you pick a sunny day. There'll be plenty of bikers here. You'll get a really warm welcome. Guarantee it.
Okay, brilliant.
Welcome.
All right. Well, good talking to you. Have a good day. Keep safe, everyone. And I think now the message is don't stay indoors. Get out and do some exercise. So that's what I'll be doing.
That's exactly it. Keep active.
Take care.
Thank you for your time, Steve. Thank you.